Stalking the streets in their scantily clad attire, the Nightwalker approaches you with her smile wide, takes your payment, and lures you back to her motel, seductively licking her lips as she... Wait, hold on. Yeah, okay, I think I got the wrong definition of Nightwalker. Sorry, just a sec. Here we go. Okay, let's take a look-see. Oh, this is way more terrifying. Hello, my name is Matt and welcome to My Hidden Nerdy Side, a channel created by a nerd who doesn't have many nerdy friends, and so I must rant to you, and today we're tackling the anti-life annihilator known as the Nightwalker. We are going to take a look at their lore, info, and abilities, and then build an encounter you can steal, modify, and plop straight into your D&D games. Here we are with another deadly epic monster, and if we went by its CR 20 rating and tossed it at a level 20 party on its own, well, it would absolutely get pooped on. So the goal of today's encounter is to build up the Nightwalker in a way that will make your players actually scared to go up against it, and also make the Nightwalker live up to its deadly lore and appearance. Now, if you are well aware of the lore and mechanics behind Nightwalkers, then feel free to pop on over to the timestamp right here so you can jump straight to the encounter itself. I'll leave a clickable version in the description below. Alright, let's take a look at Nightwalkers. To make sure this video is a decent length, we'll only be pulling the Nightwalker lore, info, and abilities that exist within Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, all of which can be found on page 216. Unfortunately, there isn't too much Nightwalker lore to begin with, but it gets worse because, for some reason, the majority of its info in Tome of Foes just explains what the negative plane is. But anyways, the negative plane, also known as the Nightmare Realm, is a place of darkness and death you can enter from the Shadowfell in a similar way one can enter the Shadowfell from the material plane, by simply entering it through a place where the barrier between the two planes is thin. Almost nobody goes to the negative plane since it's just considered a grandiose way of committing suicide, since the fell energy within it sucks the soul of any life form that enters it and completely destroys them. The only creatures able to survive entering its atmosphere are those who are insanely lucky, or those who are able to tap into rare forms of magic able to protect them from it. So why the hell would people go there? Well, because if by some miracle you can harness the fell power within the negative plane, you will be capable of using some incredibly powerful magic. Now, what does this have to do with Nightwalkers? Well, Nightwalkers come from the negative plane. They are beings of anti-life, undead creatures who are only released into the material plane if someone dares enter the negative plane. Creatures that do so and survive become trapped within it, and can only escape the negative plane if the Nightwalker returns to it. If the Nightwalker is killed, the creature is trapped in the negative plane forever. While roaming the material plane, Nightwalkers are attracted to things associated with the creature who made it possible for them to leave their home. They serve no living creature and exist to make all living things wither and die. And as an undead creature, they never need to sleep, eat, drink, or breathe, allowing them to keep on moving and eradicating all in their path. Now, looking at their actions and abilities, which can also be found on page 216 of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, there are definitely some dangerous things. They have many damage resistances and immunities, and also condition immunities, particularly those that halt their movement. They have an annihilating aura that deals necrotic damage to creatures within 30 feet of a Nightwalker on a failed Constitution saving throw, and it gives the Nightwalker advantage on attack rolls against them. They can also fly and have multi-attack with two types of attacks. An enervating focus that deals a lot of necrotic damage and reduces the creature's hit point maximum, and Finger of Doom, a magical attack that deals necrotic damage and paralyzes any target it chooses within 300 feet of it. These abilities on their own would make a Nightwalker dangerous, but what really makes them deadly is their Life Eater ability. Basically, if a creature drops below 0 hit points due to any damage dealt by the Nightwalker, the target dies and can't be revived except by using the Wish spell. This immediately makes them much more intimidating than other CR20 creatures. But there are a few homebrew changes we're going to make to bump the Nightwalker up to a truly deadly state. We're going to make them immune to being charmed and also give them turn immunity, further making them difficult to stop. We're then going to create 2 different homebrews that solve generally the same problem, but you can choose which one you want to apply. Either up their mental ability scores to 10 and give them magic resistance, or give them 3 legendary resistances. Again, this is to further increase the difficulty of stopping them. And finally, since a Nightwalker having minions doesn't make a whole lot of sense, we're going to make an extra spicy homebrew to help fix that. But that one we'll go over in more detail during the encounter making process. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basic Nightwalker lore info and abilities, let's start crafting an encounter. This encounter/quest will be aimed at parties level 15 to 20, depending on how difficult you want to make it, and last 1 to 2 sessions, depending on how much you want to stretch it out. The party's motivation should always be tailored to the campaign, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say your party needs to go rescue an NPC they care about who has made a grave mistake. So there are only 3 requirements you need to have in your world to run this encounter. 1. A magic-using NPC the party cares about and who also cares about the party. 2. The same magic-using NPC must really want to take down the BBEG of your campaign. And 3. You need an area in your world that is similar to the negative plane. If you're running a game that takes place in a setting that already has the negative plane, then cool, you're good. But if you're running a game in your homebrew world, you just need to add an area no one travels to because it's considered insanely dangerous, which traps creatures inside of it and releases a Nightwalker as a result. Now, even though the main encounter will take anywhere between 1 and 2 sessions, the setup to this encounter will take place over several to potentially dozens of sessions. Because one of the best tools you have to making someone afraid or cautious of something is to hype it up beforehand. And for a monster as terrifying as a Nightwalker, we want the PCs to feel that sense of danger. How do we do this? Well, one way is to have the NPCs talk about them. For example, a wizard NPC that aids your party from time to time. We'll call them Isabella. Let's say sometime in your campaign, your party needs a magical energy source, and so they ask Isabella for some recommendations. She may list off a few, and one of the places she mentions is the negative plane, but then she immediately regrets mentioning it and strongly urges the party not to go there and tells them everything about it. It traps people inside, it's practically suicide to go there, and of course, going there releases a Nightwalker. Then Isabella will tell the party the basic information about a Nightwalker, including how it kills you in a way that nullifies revivication. You can also have small areas in your world that are completely dead, such as fields that are barren, completely shriveled up, turned to ash, cracked, and foul-smelling. You know, all that creepy undead goodness. If the party asks about those areas, they will find out it's what remains of a Nightwalker that sucked all the life out of it hundreds of years ago. If you're particularly crafty, you can actually have the party witness a Nightwalker when they are much lower level, so long as you make it clear that fighting the Nightwalker at their current level will be a guaranteed death sentence. For example, you can have a huge monster that the players know more about, like a Hydra, and then have your party witness a Nightwalker suck the soul out of it and end its life with ease. Seeing such a horrific sight will certainly make your players at least a little more hesitant about wanting to go anywhere near a Nightwalker. Of course, don't do all of this at once. Space them out over many sessions so your players can internalize this information, and so the payoff later feels less rushed. Eventually, once your party is high enough level to deal with this encounter, and the players have formed a strong bond with your wizard NPC, your party will need a large source of energy in order to create something they need to stop the BBEG. Isabella will get the party to retrieve an item that can store this tremendous amount of energy. While they're doing that, Isabella will think of ways to get this incredible energy. However, when the party returns, they'll notice Isabella's workshop is destroyed. Anything living within within it will be withered and dead, and the walls and entrances to it will be crumbled to the ground. Poking around, your party will be able to discover this is a Nightwalker's doing. They will also find Isabella's notes that explain more about Nightwalkers, the negative plane, and what Isabella was planning to do. After many sessions of growing closer to the party and coming to understand they may be the world's only chance to stop the BBEG, she decided to make the ultimate sacrifice and venture into the negative plane in the hopes of absorbing its energy. After doing so, she will siphon it into the container the party retrieves. She had been working on a modified version of the plane shift spell that would protect her from being killed and get her out safely, but the fact she is not back yet is evidence it did not work. Also within these notes, your party will discover the only possible way of getting her out, and that is to return the Nightwalker she released back to the negative plane alive. So now the party must find and return the Nightwalker to the negative plane, of course, without entering it themselves. At their level, your party is almost guaranteed to have a way to contact Isabella through sending or some other magical means. If they don't, just have Isabella give them a sending stone or something like that beforehand. The party will also discover in Isabella's notes that Nightwalkers venture to places associated with the creature responsible for releasing them. So during some sessions before the Nightwalker encounter, have Isabella mention a place that is important to her. Maybe it's her hometown, a garden she likes to visit, or whatever. But make sure Isabella mentions this place a fair bit so your party can piece together that the Nightwalker will certainly be heading in that direction. And so now your party needs to figure out how they can get the Nightwalker into the negative plane without killing it and without entering it themselves. How this is possible depends on how difficult you make getting back to the negative plane. For the sake of keeping this encounter simple, we will say it's a place people can actually walk to from the material plane. But feel free to make it more crazy if you want. If your party comes up with an intelligent way of trapping it, awesome. But my guess is most parties will end up doing the old knock them unconscious and drag them approach. Whatever way your party comes up with is cool, but once they arrive wherever the Nightwalker is, it won't come quietly and combat will begin. Now, a Nightwalker on its own, even with our current homebrew changes, would be a cakewalk for most parties. I mean, 297 HP and a 14 AC for 4 to 6 high-level characters is nothing. But that's where our final homebrew change comes into play, and it actually uses the Nightwalker's low AC to its advantage. Every time your party deals 10 damage to the Nightwalker, they will see a piece of shadowy flesh begin to glob off of it and become a sentient creature. And this creature will be a shadow. If you are unaware of the shadow, they are a CR 1/2 creature from page 269 of the Monster Manual. However, they have a very special attack that drains 1d4 of a creature's strength score on hit. And if a creature's strength drops down to 0, they die. And for lots of classes, strength is a dump stat. Even a level 20 wizard often has an 8 to 10 strength score, meaning even a level 20 character can die from 2 attacks. And over the course of combat, 29 shadow will spawn. Most CR 1/2 creatures your party could ignore and focus on the Nightwalker since the damage is negligible at higher levels. But they can't ignore the shadow without risk of death. So now your players must juggle the damage they deal to the Nightwalker with the time they spend taking out the shadow so they don't end up becoming overrun and die. If your party succeeds, they can take the Nightwalker to just outside of the negative plane, send its body into it, and then message Isabella so she can now walk out and be free. However, she won't be unscathed. The fell energy will definitely affect her mind, and her body will be pale and her veins blackened. And depending on how you want to run it, after she transfers the energy out of her body, she may wither and die on the spot. And since Nightwalkers are made from that same energy, her death will be permanent without the wish spell. So, a super deadly encounter that truly makes the Nightwalker a fearsome foe? I think this encounter is spicy enough, but Of course, we can always make it spicier. If you are a sick bastard who wants to make this encounter even more deadly, give the Nightwalker a legendary action, the cantrip Chill Touch. This will prevent the party from healing each other, making the Nightwalker's attacks even more frightening. If you want to make this encounter simpler or more chaotic, you can pick 3 other shadow-themed creatures and roll a d4 every time the Nightwalker takes 10 damage, and have that creature spawn instead. And finally, if the trip to the negative plane is a long journey, you could always have the BBEG's minions try and stop the party, or kill the Nightwalker so the fell energy Isabella retrieved is never able to see the light. But of course, these are just some of the many ways you can use Nightwalkers in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There are tons of different ways to take this encounter and spice it up, so please let me know what you would do in the comments section below so I can nerd out over it and smack myself in the head for not thinking of it. Also, let me know if there are any creatures you would like me to build an encounter for in my future videos. I'm going to try and put out at least one of these videos a week, so feel free to subscribe and share this video around if you liked it, and stay tuned for upcoming content. Thanks for watching and indulging my hidden nerdy side.